there was a fellow that came to visit in Lubavitch. And when he came to visit in Lubavitch, the Tzemach Tzedek, he came from the city of Vitebsk, and the Tzemach Tzedek was very much mekar of this fellow. He kept on. He showed him a lot. He showed him a lot of attention, as we would say today. And the Rebbe Marash was watching his father, the Tzemach Tzedek, and he saw that this fellow was getting a lot of special attention from his father. And he didn't know this. It wasn't a chassid that was known. He didn't know who the guy was. So he went over to the Gaboyim of the Tzemach Tzedek, because obviously, if anyone knows, the Gaboyim, through the years, this guy must have been in Yechidus, and they probably know who he is. None of the Gaboyim of the Tzemach Tzedek knew who this fellow was. So he decided, the Rebbe Marash, to go over himself to speak to this guy, to see who he is. He goes over to him, and he speaks to him, and he schmoozes with him, and he sees Saposhta Cheverman, very poshta guy, simple fellow from Vitebsk. Nothing, he didn't see any depth or any reason why his father was so much showing such special attention to this guy. He walked over to his father, Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe Marash, and he asked him, who is this guy that's getting such special attention? And the Tzemach Tzedek tells him, oh, you want to know who this guy is? He says, as Ayid from Vitebsk. Ayid, he's a Jew from Vitebsk that he's Boki in Shas, Bavi, Yerushalmi, and a couple of other things also, he said. Behaltzich, he conceals himself. And he's also a Mukabi Yisurim. He has a lot of Yisurim. A lot of tzoras. The time has come, the Tzemach Tzedek says, and he's Makabel the Yisurim B'simcha. And the Tzemach Tzedek says, Ich mein nicht, dass tanzt. I don't mean that he's dancing, but that he accepts it with understanding. And the time has come for this Yid to see good in his life, b'toy v'nir v'nigle. The time has come. This is what the Tzemach Tzedek told the Rebbe Marash. So the Rebbe Marash heard, and about a day or two later, this Yid from Vitebsk, just as he came, he disappeared. But the words of the Tzemach Tzedek, the bracha that the Tzemach Tzedek gave to the Rebbe Marash about this Yid, came to fruition. And a year later, this Yid came back, and Baruch Hashem, he had tremendous success that year, and there was a turnaround in his life. And when he came back this time, he brought with him, on his account, another 10 chassidim with him. 1,000,000 of chassidim he paid for that they should be able to come with him. In our terminology, we would say today that he paid for 10 tickets to fly with him to New York. Am soll verstehen, was es meint, kipschutte. Und ich mein Tickets von Eretz Yisrael, nicht von Chicago. Okay. Because he came to the Rebbe to Tzemach Tzedek, and when the Rebbe Marash saw him a second time, a year later, he turned to him and he asked the Tzemach Tzedek. He said to him, Tata, he says, how did you know who this guy was? He was never in Yechidus. The Gaboyim told me that he never went into Yechidus. So how did you know all the details and everything about him? So Tzemach Tzedek had him gesagt, Tzemach Tzedek told him, Says, I inherited from the Alter Rebbe, from my grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, I inherited a pair of glasses. That he inherited those pair of glasses from the Baal Shem Tov. And when you put on those glasses, you're able to see the Mahus Apnimis, the inner essence of every single Jew. I remember that I once visited the library for a good Chabad, and they had on display the Rebbe Marash's glasses. I'll be gefragt by Beryl Levin. I asked him, this is it? This is the Tzemach Tzedek's glasses that he got from the Alter Rebbe, that he got from Baal Shem Tov. He tells me, we don't know. We don't know if those glasses are Taka Emes and Gashmi's dike glasses, or Ruchni's dike glasses. But those are the Rebbe Marash's glasses. This was a story that the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, told over. The truth of the matter is that we also have the glasses. We have the Rebbe's glasses. The Rebbe has given us his sichas, his memorim, his letters. We have his rishimas. And when we put on the Rebbe's glasses, we also are able to see in the way the Rebbe wants us to see. The Rebbe's glasses are in every aspect. The Mekuk Tafayid, how we look at a Jew, how we look at ourselves, what's our mission in life, and so on. I'd like to say now, in this Nekuda, where Rosh Chodesh Sivan, Ki'ish Echad B'Leiv Echad, and the Rebbe has given us his glasses. We have all of his Torah. And it comes with Rosh Chodesh Sivan, for example. And we want to live with Rosh Chodesh Sivan with the way the Rebbe looks at Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Or we're getting ready for Shavuos. And we want to live with Shavuos, which the way the Rebbe looks at Shavuos. That we should be able to have an understanding of what Shavuos means, of what Rosh Chodesh Sivan means, of these days that we're living through right now. We have to put on the glasses. We have to make an effort to take at least a sikha, one of the Rebbe's sikhas, and to learn it through. And to learn it through well. And to learn it over again. And over again. A couple of times. It's like I was once telling, there's people that they always ask that when you learn Tanya, in Tanya Shtetach, Kishi is born, in Bigdulas Hashem, when you'll contemplate or meditate on the greatness of Hashem, whatever, then this and this and this. And there's people that ask, what does it exactly mean, Kishi is born? That you'll be misboinen, you'll contemplate. Can you please tell me what that means? And I say to them, the truth of the matter is, each and every one of us has the koyach of his boniness, and we use it a lot of times. We don't even know that we're using it. I'll give you a perfect example that happens a lot of times that a person uses it. If God forbid somebody slights you, says to you something that, an insult, a cynical remark, or something, slights you. You think about it once. You think about it twice. You think about it a third time. You come home, you tell it over. You meet somebody else. Du weißt, was hat mir gesagt? Again and again. And what happens after you do it a good couple of times? You start having emotions about it. It becomes a part of you. The mechanism of his boniness exists by us. we choose to what we want to contemplate over. But we have that mechanism. It's not that it's completely lost us. There's those that wanted to tell me it's probably in the times that the free Gebet got lost his boniness. I said, no. We still have it today also. It's just a question of how we're using it. What do we have to do? We have to take a sikha from the Rebbe on Shavuos. One sikha. We have to learn it through once. And chew it over again another time. And think about it a third time. 3, 4, 5 times you learn a sikha from the Rebbe. And you think about it. And you think about it from all of its angles. So go on this sikha. It's a completely different sikha. And then it starts having more to be a part of our lives. It's not just another piece of information. Another piece of knowledge that I received. In order for it to be able to affect us, and in order for it to be able to internalize, and that we should be able to live with the message, we have to use that mechanism to go over a number of times, and then we can live with it. Tmimim, that's for sure. Rosh Chodesh Sivan, Kishach, Adlevach, Yemei Agbola, Yemei Prishav Agbola, the Sichas from the Rebbe, Shavuos, Shina Batzeres Arevihi, Kol Godol Lo Yosef, Al Hein Hein Lav Lav, Chulsha de Urche. Pick any Sicha, over to contemplate, to think about it, to live with it. Put on the Rebbe's glasses and then to live with it. That's really Vasamonzach. Because then it becomes a part of our lives. If it's just another interesting word, so it remains on the surface an interesting word. The Rebbe hat sich gegossen, the Rebbe gave us such treasure chests that we should think about it and again, so that we should really live with it. I saw a letter from the Rebbe. I've Farbrengen this letter a good number of times already. There are some times when you read a letter, one of the milas of the letters of the Rebbe, because the Rebbe is dealing with a lot of life issues in letters. In the Siche, it's Momayla Mata. Es fängt sich an von Teire, und von Teire geht es herab in Welt. But the letters, it's Momata Lamayla. Es fängt sich an von der Meise von Welt. And the Rebbe is Makasher, the Meise von Welt, in the Allen Yon of us Maland. The Rebbe connects what's going on in the world with all that we're learning. I saw this letter. It's a letter, it's the Geya to all of us. It's a letter to a bocher that learned he was learning not in a Lubavitcher yeshiva, and he moved over to learn in a Lubavitcher yeshiva. And after a couple of months that he was learning Lubavitcher yeshiva, he writes a letter into the Rebbe, and he says to the Rebbe in the letter, he can understand this when the Rebbe answers him. He tells the Rebbe that he sees the yeshiva that he's learning right now, there's a lot of chesroinus, and Memela, he's thinking about going back to learn in his previous yeshiva, because there's a lot of chesroinus in the yeshiva that he's learning right now. And the Rebbe writes him back a letter, and the Rebbe tells him that the Yetzer Hara, he is on one hand we call the Yetzer Hara a Melech Zokin Vixil, an old foolish king. But the Rebbe says, you shouldn't think that because we call him foolish, that he's a nar and a tippish. The Yetzer Hara is bechlal nish ke nar and tippish. The Yetzer Hara is not foolish at all. The Yetzer Hara is an umen b'mlachtoi. He's an expert in his field. V'anochish hoya orim. He's sly as sly as a snake. We say a fox, snake was sly. He says the fact that we call him a foolish king is because he entices us and influences us to do foolish things. But he himself, Cheverman, He really, really knows how to work us over. And then the Rebbe tells him like this. I mean, the reason why you changed yeshivas and you went to learn in a Lubavitch yeshiva, he says, is because you were looking for a yeshiva that learns Panemius HaTorah, because you wanted to have more of an inner way of serving Hashem. You didn't want just an external way of serving Hashem. You were looking for a deeper way of serving Hashem. And that's why you went. In other words, you were in a tenu of ischaskes. You're trying to strengthen your devotion and dedication to your avodas Hashem by trying to get a deeper meaning into everything, by learning in a place that learns the deeper meanings of Torah. If the Yetzer Hara would come along and tell you, what do you have to do that for? Why don't you just go back to your external way, the way it was, and just go back to that? You wouldn't listen to him. The whole reason why you left is because you're looking for deeper meaning. So you're not going to listen to him. So what does he do, he says? Yetzer Hara knows that there's a general rule. Until Mashiach will come, Ein Shleim es ba'olam hazeh. There's no perfection in this world. No perfection. So he comes along and he highlights the imperfections where you are. And he comes to you and he says, you came to here to strengthen yourself, to become a deeper individual and a stronger individual. Look at this problem and that problem. That's why you came for that. Look what you're getting. Oh, he says. He clothed himself into righteous clothing. You're looking for a deeper service of Hashem. And you got merchandise that has defected, has problems. Oh, you're not getting what you want. He's highlighting the imperfections. And the Rebbe says, how do you know where it's coming from? He says, you always have to look at, you have to try to look at what is the outcome? What is the conclusion? What does it want to lead to? Because when he closes himself, it's in a clothing. It's hard to know. You have to be able to try to get to where is it leading to, what does he want? And if the conclusion is to leave a place that is learning, Panemius HaTorah, that will give a deeper meaning to everything that you know, and a deeper meaning in your own serving of Hashem, with a deeper understanding and a deeper feeling, then you know it's not coming from the right source. Because of the conclusion. Even though that it's enclosed in right, you're right. And the Rebbe says, because not always when you're right. Because you have to know where that right is leading you towards. Now I must say, when I read the letter, I started to think to myself and I said, you know how many people, because they think that they're right, will wreak havoc because they're right? You know how many people, because of the word of justice, they're willing to destroy because of justice? And I said, it's mind-boggling what the Rebbe is telling us. That he can clothe himself in the word of justice. And later on I found a letter that the Rebbe says, Mechalal, ad Yetzer Hara geht zu Afrum Yid, when he comes over to Afrum Yid, he has to talk in the language of Shulchan Aruch, of a Maimer Chazal, because he's not even get the whole plate without talking about a din in Shulchan Aruch or Maimer Chazal. But the question is, what's the outcome? Where is it heading towards? There's people that can talk in the name of a Sikha from the Rebbe. Tzachosed af mered the Sikha from the Rebbe. But the question is, what's the outcome? What's the result? What's the conclusion? It's not so simple. After you read that letter, And that's how the Rebbe explains how crafty he can be. You realize that we're up against, we have to be much, much more protected and much more calculated and much more not to just build on the way we understand things and to be Makayim Aseilah Harav, to be able to have more of an objective opinion about things. So you should be able to understand. Because not always when you're right, it means you're right. And not always when it's I'm a fetish sicher, I'm a fetish bri, I'm a fetish eino. Watch out. Watch out what it means. And this is one letter that the Rebbe writes to Bocher, that he gives us such an insight, which is an insight in life in general, in our personal lives, in our communal lives, in everything that we go through in life. But we have to take the mechanism of learning something and contemplating and thinking about it and turning it over and tossing it over again and again for a number of times, that we should be able to get to those glasses that the Rebbe has given us, that we should be able to have more of an inner understanding and inner feeling for things. Tamimim, as it's getting close to Shavuos, they for sure, at least 2-3 sichas from the Rebbe, durchgelernt wie sie darf sein, to learn it well, to internalize the sicha, to know it inside and out, the message of the Rebbe, was he Shavuos. And balabatim, at least 1-2 sichas, al malep with them, that we should live with it, that we have what to think about, that we have what to take, skumta yontiv, at the table, a word for them, an insight from the Rebbe, an understanding, something that we can relate to in our own personal lives, the chiddush from Matan Torah, what it wants from us, because the Rebbe's, all the Rebbe's sichas, is my morim and igis, his yeshivas, they're all built for our generation. They're custom made for our generation to give us the koiches that we should be able to have a deeper understanding and a deeper commitment into everything that we're doing. The or that we get from the Rebbe is to counter the choshech that's in this world. The giluyim that the Rebbe gives us is to be able to counterbalance the choshech that's hoylech v'goyver we have from the Rebbe, the or that he gave us, and the giluyim from the Rebbe. But we can't leave the svarim on the svarim shelves. We have to take them off the bookshelf, and we have to open up and put on the glasses. They can't go through a week, Parshas HaShavua, that at L'chol HaPachas we have one or two sichas that we're living with the Parsha. Parshas Bamidbar, Parshas Nosei, Yom Teshuvos. So l'chaim, let's put on our glasses. Let's, as we're standing, Ki'ish Echad B'Leiv Echad, Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Now is a time before Matan Torah. You know, like there's a word that the Polish Sfarim bring in Europe. It says, we call Shavuos Zman Matan Torah. So they asked the Shaila, why is it called Zman Matan Torah? It should be called Chag Kabbalas HaTorah, the Yom Tov of receiving the Torah. So in this Polish Sfarim sagt man that the fact that the Eibishter gave the Torah, that's for sure. But how much we receive it, that depends on each and every individual. Zman Matan Torah, it was clear, it was given. How much we're going to take it in, that depends on each and every one of us. And the same thing. The Rebbe gegossen chassidus, the Rebbe gießt siches, the Maimorim, letters on letters. Child is, how much are we putting it into ourselves? How much is the Rebbe part of our lives? How much is he on the bookshelf? And how much are we really living with him? That's the shot. The fact that he gives of himself doesn't klor. Ano nafshik sovis yovis. Tzadikim doimim leboirim. The Rebbe writes himself. And the Rebbe tzach reingelegt in all of his sichas, in all of his chassidus, in all of his maimorim and his letters. The Rebbe wrote himself into it. No, the Rebbe brings down in Titus Menachem in Tafshin Yud, after the Stalkas of Free Rebbe, the Rebbe brings down towards the Sof of Tafshin Yud. The Rebbe says that it says in the Zohar that no one knows where Moshe Rabbeinu was buried. And the Zohar says that Moshe Rabbeinu is in the Mishnah. He's buried in the Mishnah. The Rebbe brings it down. And the Rebbe says that the Moreh Naim, the Chernobyl, Rabbi Menachem Chernobyl, brings down in his Sefer Moreh Naim, B'Shem HaBaal Shem Tov, that every tzaddik, his tziyin is his svarim. Just like it says in Moshe Rabbeinu that he's buried in the Mishnah, the Baal Shem Tov said that every tzaddik is inside his svarim. That's where he is. That's the case. We go over and learn a Sikha Rebbe. We're nisached with the Rebbe himself. A letter, a mimer. We're all looking for the Rebbe. We all want a connection. But to connect means that we have to give of ourselves also. We have to be willing to receive. We have to take. And of course, like I said before, if we're just reading it externally, so it's an external kesher. But if we internalize, it becomes an internal kesher. It depends how much we're willing to bring it in, how much we're willing to receive it. And just like we have mitzvahs, but we also have Torah. We can't suffice ourselves just that we're being oisik in askonas, doing the Rebbe's work. We have to do the Rebbe's work, but we also have to have the time and recognize that we have to have that oxygen. We have to have the time that we sit down and we learn from the Rebbe's Torah. We learn from the Rebbe's Torah, and it becomes a part of us. Because then, when we go out to do and to act, it's a gourmet and under tiefkeit. It's a completely different level of depth. Because it's not just an external thing, it became more and more engraved in us. The motivation is greater, the enthusiasm is greater, the energy that we get from it is great. So we're holding before Zman Matan Torah. This is the time when we have to think about unser Kabbalah Torah, how we're receiving the Torah. It's a time for us to realize that we have to put on the Rebbe's glasses. Each and every one of us has to have time. A kviyas benefesh, a kviyas bezman. A kviyas bezman helps because it ties you down. That you learn and then you think about it. You use the mechanism of contemplation in order to become tiefer, involved and connected. So Hashem should help each and every one of us. We're sitting berabim. Svadas berabim b'chlal. The Rebbe says achlotas that we make berabim. If we would know how much it's negea benefesh to each and every one of us, that we can't be rusty. It has to be fresh. We can't live on past achievements. We can't live just on our past knowledge. Not only that, I'll tell you something even more than that. There are certain sikhs that people of my age group can say, Shine Batzeres Areve. And you know, the famous sikhs about Shavuos. Yes, Chababus the sikh, Ken the sikh, I chazed it. You should know that when you learn a sikh over from the Rebbe, even if you think you know it well, and you knew it from the past, when you relearn it, it's a gore and under the sikh. All of a sudden it takes on completely different dimensions. Things that you didn't even recognize when you learned it. Anyone that doesn't knows it. You learn a sikha when you're a bocher, there's some things it passes you by. Because it's not even shaykhs to your life. All of a sudden when you relearn it, anaya sikha. I didn't even know they ever said that. I learned the sikha when I was a bocher, I learned it mitabol, a new sikha. I had such a story that I was learning a sikha from the Rebbe. One of my sons, Chelik Aleph Beis and Gimel Daled, the four first Chalokim and Kutas Sichas, have a lot of the Yesoidis, the foundations of all the Rebbe's Torah. They're there in a very seed level, most of the Gedanken afterwards you'll find in those first Chalokim. I was learning a Sikha with one of my sons. The Sikha talks about why Yitzchak had to be born after Avram Avinu went through his bris. And the Rebbe explains because the bris is in for Lamayla Mitamadas. And because Yitzchak was going to have an avodah of Lamayla Mitamadas, he had to be born from a Nekuda, which is Lamayla Mitamadas from bris. So usually when you say that Yitzchak had to go through a avodah Lamayla Mitamadas, you expect it to say Akedah. It was Messias Nebush, Akedah is Yitzchak, Lamayla Mitamadas. No, the Rebbe says a different Lamayla Mitamadas about Yitzchak. It's a Yud Mis Tamas Dikasi. The Rebbe says that Yitzchak went and he dug wells. He put time and effort, and his people, and they dug a well. Set Oga cost Geld, with Zeit, effort and time and money. And finally he finds pure water. And after he goes through the whole Geschäft, the Plishtim come along and they say, Semayne Wasser, and they take away the water. So he goes again, and he takes money and time and effort, and he digs a second well. And finally he finds water. Comes again the Plishtim, Nochamal. Plishtim come again, and they take away the water. He says, to go dig a third well after that, you gotta be Lamayla Mitamadas. Because once you put so much effort and so much time and so much money and energy, and every time you do it, they take it away from you. You gotta get some kind of a above logic strength to be able to go further. And as I was reading it, I said, Oy vey, I never noticed that. In other words, you want to tell me after all the effort, you pass the zoning laws, and you finally get through all the permits, and you finally start digging, and you sign contracts, and then they come along, boom, and then you got to start all over again. And then you got to start over again with the ganze koiches. Avoide from Lamayla Mitamadas. I went through it digging my well. When I was in yeshiva, I passed it by. I didn't recognize what it was talking about. I dug a well in Rehovot also, and I had to completely, after 8 years, with thousands of dollars, had to lose it. You got to keep digging wells. You thought you built everything up. Boom. Above logic. Weiter. I lomo os Hashem kocho. No. Nor the Rebishter face. Why does God do these things we can't understand? But we're troopers. And we got to go further. When I learned to seek as a bocher, I don't even remember it. When I learned it over again, now it has a different meaning. That means even if you put in effort and you don't see always that your effort, it's happening, or even more than that, you see how all the effort went down the tubes. Vernish Nispol. We're in God's army, you got to go further. And Mela, Chevre, the time has come. The Rebbe needs serious soldiers. We're living in a world that everything is very, very, there's such information out there, but everything has become very, very shallow. Everything is instant. Instant coffee, instant tea, fast food, junk food, everything quick fix. Everything is shallow. The Rebbe needs serious soldiers. Serious soldiers means that we have to take our lives a little bit more serious. We have to internalize the message much more. We have to be more atrachton. Putting on the Rebbe's glasses means taking it more serious, recognizing what we have and using it out to our utmost. So l'chaim, we should makabel the Torah b'simcha u'b'pnimius. We should recognize and thank God that we were given how happy we are that we were given such a treasure chest, and we should use out the treasure chest the way we're supposed to. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Yeah.
L'chaim. It's working? It's not working, huh? Okay, L'chaim. No, we're now Rosh Chodesh Sivan ki ish echad b'leiv echad. The Rebbe writes, Siche, that the Kli that we were in oil, the Kabbalah Satira, is because we came to the darg of Ki'ish Echad B'leiv Echad. Like Chazal say, that once there was Shalom amongst us, then we were roy to be able to Mekabel the Torah. There's a mitzvah in the Torah. We just learned it also in the Rambam, in mitzvah sesei. It's the mitzvah of v'halachta b'drochav. To walk in the ways of Hashem. And Chazal bring down ma kadosh baruch hu rachum af ata tiyeh rachum. Ma kadosh baruch hu chanun af ata tiyeh chanun. Ma kadosh baruch hu chazden af ata tiyeh chazden. Hashem is merciful, you should be merciful. Hashem has pity, you should think. Hashem is gracious and grateful and gives kindness, you should also do. So the Rebbe, in a number of his sichas, asks the Shaila that l'choire, the mitzvah of halachta b'drachav, is a general mitzvah that the Rambam says clearly that he doesn't write general mitzvahs. And nevertheless, the Rambam brings down halachta b'drachav as one of the mitzvahs. It must be that there must be something in walking in Hashem's ways that's different, that it's not just a generality. Then the Rebbe says further, to be merciful, pitiful, kind, is all involved in the mitzvah of ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. So what's the chiddush of halachta b'drachav that it becomes a mitzvah for itself? What's the chiddush? So there's one sikha from the Rebbe that the Rebbe says, "V'halachta b'drachav halachta," that your avodas Hashem has to be like a halicha, not to just stand in one point, to keep growing. That's the chiddush of halachta b'drachav. Because you can do what you have to do, but you can stay on one level the whole time. It has to be v'halachta. You have to keep moving, keep growing. Like Mendel told us once, we were Farbrengen, Mendel told us what's the difference between a 60-year-old Russian farmer and a 70-year-old Russian farmer. So we told him we're not from Russia, so we don't know. So he says, I'll tell you, I'm from Russia. He says the difference between a 60-year-old Russian farmer and a 70-year-old Russian farmer is 10 years of potatoes. Yeah, 10 years of potatoes. The same farmer, 60 years old, 70 years old, he just ate another couple of sack of potatoes. He said to us at the Farbrengen, I hope that when I meet you guys in a couple of years, since ich anher nicht nur wie viel Kartoschkes te gegessen, aber was wie viel Chsidis and wie viel Heiskashes and Yonah for them, that we should be able to see not only how many potatoes you ate, but what changed in your lives in the last couple of years. So the Rebbe has one sikh of halachta b'drachav, it's the halicha, to keep growing, not to stagnate. Or like we spoke about before, not to live just on past achievements. I saw a letter from the Rebbe recently that the Rebbe writes to a Rov from Young Israel. He was one of the leaders of the Young Israel movement. And the guy was apparently close to the Rebbe, and he sent into the Rebbe the bulletin of Young Israel Bulletin. And the Rebbe told me he was happy that he got the bulletin, and he was happy to see that there's a lot of inyonim that that he's working on, that it shouldn't be just like, compromised Judaism. And then the Rebbe says, it's nice to see that in the bulletin it talks about the achievements of the organization, but one has to be careful that when you write about achievements, at the same time in the bulletin, it should also say the things that are still lacking or the things that have to still be done. Because if you just write about the achievements, the Rebbe says, one can fall into the problem of a feeling, Ani et sheli asiti kvar. I already did what I have to do. So therefore, if you write not only about the achievements, but you also mention within the bulletin about the things that still have to be done, you don't fall into that complacency of that I'm happy with what I did and I've done already what I have to do. So you got to keep growing. There's another sikha from the Rebbe that the Rebbe says something else. He says when one does a mitzvah, because you're emotionally involved when you do mitzvahs, emotions have the tendency to sometimes bring us to extremities. Because that's what emotion's about. Valachta b'drochav is to teach us that in all what we're doing, we should walk in the way of Hashem. In the way of Hashem, the Rambam says, in Hilchas Deis, Derech Hashem is the Derech HaMitzua, the middle of the road, not the extremities. And he says that's Valachta b'drochav, that one should be careful about not falling to extremities, unless Torah tells us you have to go to the extreme, but doing the mitzvahs in the Derech of Hashem, which is the Derech HaMitzua. To emulate Hashem in His way. I was thinking about it. Said to myself that we can learn the Rebbe's Torah and we could carry out the Rebbe's directives, but we could sometimes get involved because of our emotions in extremities. Extreme. Valachta b'drochav is that we also have to remember another level in Iskashus. And that is to emulate our Rebbe in his ways. The way the Rebbe accepted people. The gentleness of the Rebbe. The pleasant manner of the Rebbe. We don't find aggressiveness by the Rebbe. In other words, we have to think and look, how can we emulate the way the Rebbe acted? Many years ago, my father had a minyan in Toronto for children. Many, many years ago. This is before he started his student minyan. This is when we first came to Toronto, he had a children's minyan. Under the age of bar mitzvah, he gathered kids from the whole area where we lived, and he would daven with them basics. A lot of the kids weren't religious. He would tell them over the story of the parsha, and then he would make kiddush and give them refreshments, the kiddush. And he would have 50 kids, 60 kids, depending on the week. A minyan for kids. There were two brothers that came to daven with the minyan. The Kaplan brothers. Reb Chaim and Reb Shmuel Kaplan. One was over bar mitzvah, one was under bar mitzvah. Eventually, after a short amount of time, from the minyan they became frum. and they went to learn in the yeshiva, the Lubavitch yeshiva in Boston. It was getting close to Pesach, and they had a mother in Toronto. It wasn't shaykh for them to go back to Toronto. The mother didn't keep Pesach the way they have to keep Pesach. B'chlal, kitchen wasn't made Pesach, so down the hole in the yeshiva they set up for them to be able to go to New York to be by a family in New York for Pesach. So Chaim wrote into the Rebbe to let the Rebbe know that Pesach is coming. They're going to be spending it in Crown Heights by a family. The Rebbe answered back that they should see and try to be together with their mother for Pesach. And they should ask from the Rov of the Kehillas Chabad of Toronto, Rabbi Shochet and Rabbi Gluckowsky. They should go and talk to the mother to explain to the importance of kashering the house for Pesach, and to try to influence her that you should be able to be with your mother for Pesach. So he called up my father. My father went together with Rabbi Shochet Salag Yor, my father was Sholem, and Ogishet. They went down to Mrs. Kaplan, talked to her about what it means Pesach and what it entails, the kashering, that they're willing to help and everything else. That her kids can come home for Pesach. And she agreed. So they kashered the house and they came home for Pesach. But we went to New York for Pesach. My family. My grandfather was still living at the time in Borough Park. We came to New York. Erev Pesach, we stood in line when the Rebbe used to give out matzahs in Erev Pesach. They used to give out little pieces of matzahs. This was before the days that the Koil Yungalite gave out the matzahs. We used to stand in line. The Rebbe gave out little pieces of matzah for everyone to have by Leil HaSeder. For the matzahs that the Rebbe baked on Erev Pesach. We stood in line, and a lot of guys, when they stood in line, they would ask matzahs for people that were living in different towns, and they would run with the matzah to the post office, and put it into an envelope, special delivery, and sometimes it would get there for the second day of Pesach for the Seder. I'm not going into the halachic aspect of right now about this situation. I'm going to go into that. So the Kaplan boys asked my father, before we went to New York, when you go by when the Rebbe for matzahs, if you could ask for matzahs for us too. So we go by. The Rebbe gives each one of us a little piece of matzah. I was a little kid at the time. And the Rebbe turns to my father turns to the Rebbe and he tells, if he could have for the Kaplan brothers from Toronto. The Rebbe looks at him and he says to him, they're with their mother for Pesach. So my father says to him, yeah, the mother agreed to kasher the house. We kasher them. The first night of Pesach, the first Seder, then they're going to be by Rabbi Mendel Aronov. Second night, second Seder, they're going to be by Rabbi Yomin Rubinov, all of his children. I think Shia lives over here. Shia Rubinov lives. Shia sister. Oh. Kleine Welt. So the Rebbe looks at him again, and he says to my father, "Mit the mama?" About the Seders. With the mother? The father says to him, "Yeah, with the mother." Both nights? Yeah, both nights. The Rebbe turns around, takes a whole matzah, with a big smile, and he gives it to my father. A whole matzah. The Rebbe was handing out pieces like this, literally. A whole matzah. From the Zufriedenkeit, from happy that they're home with their mother and they're going to be together with the Seder with the mother. Walked away. I couldn't understand. I said, why did we get such a small piece? I was a little kid. We get a small piece, they got such a big matzah. Years my father would Farbrengen, and he would say, look at that. Hundreds of people are standing in line, waiting for a little piece of matzah. I just mentioned the Kaplan brothers, and without a bat in the eye, the Rebbe says, they're with their mother. And he doesn't make sure by the Seder and everything. Oh, now, and he goes and gives a whole matzah. The Rebbe shows us how much he cared about every individual, and not only that, that the children, the sons should be with the mother for Pesach, with the Yontif, and the Leil Seder, how much it was negayim benefesh. That personal touch. This Shabbos I was sitting by Kiddush. Farbrengen, Shlomo Leib Abramowitz. He has yahrzeit for his father. So he says to me, he says, you know why I'm sitting here today? He tells me, first of all, it starts with the Friedrich Rebbe, with Achet Tmimim. That he started the day school system all over the place. He says, I was a Talmud in Worcester. And his father passed away suddenly when he was 12 years old. And his brother, Lenny, was 10. And they sent us off to Gan Yisrael of Swan Lake. He said, where did you come from, Lubavitcher Mishpocha? He says, in Gan Yisrael of Swan Lake, he says, there was such a varmkeit, such warmth. They accepted us in this. He says, he started going to the Rebbe by himself. He came Tishrei, Sukkot, came Yitis Kislev, came by bus. And I think Zev Katz got to know him in Gan Yisrael of Swan Lake. So he brought him to his house, and that became his house by Moshe Pinchas Katz. He says, and he came home and he was becoming a stark Lubavitcher. And the Rebbe took an interest. And he says, and this Chaim Kaplan was in Gan Yisrael, Swan Lake, and when he told him where he's planning on going to yeshiva the next year, it wasn't the Lubavitcher yeshiva, he told him that's not a place for you to go, and he took out a brochure of the yeshiva in Montreal. And he told him, here's where you should be going next year. And what happened was, he says, he had an older sister that wasn't happy with the fact that he was becoming Lubavitch. And she was fighting it. And she told him there's going to be a Shabbaton in Boston from the NCSY. Mixed Shabbaton. And you have to go. And she was very tough and strong. And no one wanted to start up with her. And he says he didn't want to go. Mixed. A mixed Shabbaton. I don't know if it's that one. A mixed Shabbaton. She didn't want to go. He didn't want to go. But no one was willing to fight with her. No one in the community. Because they knew that she was trying to hold the family together in such a difficult time. You know what to do? He says he wrote a letter into the Rebbe. I think it was Purim time. He wrote a letter into the Rebbe. It had to be before Pesach. Or right after Pesach, the Shabbat. No, before Pesach. He says to the Rebbe, he doesn't want to go, but he doesn't know what to do. What should he tell her? So the Rebbe answers. You'll tell her that because you're in Shnas Avela, Reb Chadakov called him in. Reb Chadakov called him in, told me as an answer from the Rebbe. The Rebbe said to tell, because it's Shnas Avelis, you can't go. He thought when Reb Chadakov gave him the answer, well, Shnas Avelis, his sister's going to listen to Shnas Avelis. He came home. It was the beginning of the week. The Shabbaton had to be that week. His sister says to me, you better start packing. We're going for... He says, I'm not going. What do you mean you're not going? He says, it's Shnas Avelis. So she says, so you can go to Farbrengens in New York? So you tell her, that's different. And that's what she said. That's what he said. Who's in his kabel? He never gave him an answer and she accepted. He says he came for Aachen Shul Pesach to New York. He's 13 years old. He's standing in the back by the Farbrengen. Yes, in that year, I think it was Chavov, he says the Rebbe was turning to people all through the Farbrengen and going like this, about 4 koises. Asking people like this a simon if they drank the 4 koises. He says all of a sudden, he says the Rebbe points towards him and he goes like this. He says, he didn't even dream. As a 13-year-old kid, he said, didn't even dream that the Rebbe is talking to him. So he didn't do anything. The Rebbe looks at him again, goes like this. Again, he didn't even think that it's probably somebody next to him, this side, right side, left side, back side. He says, finally, he says, the 3rd time, the Rebbe goes like this to him. So somebody says next to him, the Rebbe's talking to you. He wants to be drawing 4 koises. So he went like this to the Rebbe. Like, he didn't drink 4 koises. So the Rebbe tells him, the Rebbe goes like this to him. So he says, he makes like this to the Rebbe. Like, there's no wine. Like, you know what I mean? So he says, he was pelted with bottles of wine. And the Rebbe worried that he should be drinking the Dalit koises. He says, 13 years old, a kid from Worcester, a Yosim. And the Rebbe's worried if he's drinking 4 koises. He says, and that's why I'm here today. I'm here today because of Achet Mimim. You know, my mother lived for a year with her family in Rochester. And they learned that Achet Mimim in Rochester under your father, Rabbi Schusterman. He had opened up over there. He was in charge. They were there 1 year in Rochester. They learned Achet Mimim in Rochester. I don't know how many years he was there. It was 3 years there. But one of the years they were there, they learned. He says that's what no one even understands and knows the scope of what it meant at that time. There were so many Frumme Yidden living in different areas of the United States, and there was no chinuch for them. And even though they were Frum, their kids went completely fried because of that. Walk into Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and you'll go into the cemetery and you'll see Menachem Mendels and Doiv Bears and Shneur Zalmans. No chinuch. He says, Poshet, the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe took an interest, made sure that we should have chinuch. We don't even know how many hundreds and hundreds of children have from families today from that. And the warmth of Swan Lake, he says. And the yeshiva. He says, but the personal interest that the Rebbe took. Volachta bedrochav. The Rebbe wants us to take a personal interest in every single Yid. We meet people. We get to know people. Everything is hashgacha pratis. The Rebbe wants to know that they're having a seder with their mother. The Rebbe wants to know if a child drank 4 koises. The Rebbe answers him how to get out of a problem with his own sister. A personal interest in every single person that we meet. That's how you can make a difference in a person's life. Warmkeit, warmth, personal touch can make all the difference in a person's life for the rest of his life. A Yid walks into shul, a strange face, walking over to him with a shalom aleichem, giving him a siddur, sitting him down in a place. He feels like a stranger when he walks in. And if somebody walks over to him and connects with him and takes care of him, it can make all the difference in a person's life. There are people that because of that initial connection and that interest that's taken, that's what keeps them in a shul. And that's how you can eventually get them even closer and closer. Nicht heimgedacht, when I was sitting shiva for my father, one of the younger light of Toronto, Lubavitcher man, comes in and he tells me and my brother, he says to me, I'm married to my wife today because of your father. And I say to him, what's the story? He was the Shadchan. He says, no. He says, I became frum. Manis Friedman had a big effect on my life. He says, and afterwards I started to come to Lubavitch in Toronto, to the Minyan, upstairs Minyan with the students. And I was fachapt in Gansen, and I became a chosen. My kala was from a modern Orthodox family in Toronto. She was getting stronger, but she was from a modern Orthodox background. She lived in the other area of Toronto. Her parents were mispalim in a shul called Shari Shamayim. Very modern Orthodox shul, beautiful built, one of the richest shuls at that time in Toronto. Marble, mahogany, the works. And I kept on describing to my kala the gewaldige shul, the Lubavitcher shul in Toronto. At that time, we're talking about on 44 Edinburgh. The small red brick building. So one time she says, okay, you know what? I'll come for Shabbos. It was a 45-minute walk. She walks from the Shari Shamayim area to shul. He tells her davening starts, I think it started then, either 9:30 or 9:45. I don't remember right now. But, 9:30 is, if it's 9:30, it's 9:30. It's basically Shechachmas. She comes in, and she sees the building from far. She comes in. It's very today, He's talking about this shul, this Lubavitcher shul, American shul. You have to understand, she's coming from a modern, beautiful building and everything else, and all of a sudden she sees this little small red brick building. She walks in, and, it has a special smell, the shul over there too. She walks in, and the student minion was upstairs. The staircase is also, nish from the modern staircases. And she walks upstairs, and to the right is the Ezras Noshim. She walks in. There's no one there, first of all. It's like the beginning of davening. The students started to daven. She walks in. The tables are alte tischen. There's no chairs, it's benches. Everything is old-fashioned and tzahak. She sits down, and she starts thinking to herself, this is the place that my chosen is making such a fuss about? About 5-10 minutes goes by, and it's brewing her thoughts. We talked about the mechanism of contemplation. His bonus, she's thinking and thinking. After 10 minutes, she picks herself up and she says, this is not for me. If this is what he calls the best place in town, then I made a mistake. Not only on the shul, but also my chosen. And she walks out into the hall, and she starts walking down the steps. My father had a custom that on Shabbos, he would, every couple of minutes, walk out into the hall to go fishing. Maybe there's somebody around, just to see what's going on. Punkt when she's walking down the steps, he walked out into the hall, and he sees her walking down the steps. She says, hello, it's Shabbos. So she turns around. Where are you going? We just started to daven. What's your name? And she says her name. Oh, you're Rabari's Kala. Oh, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. He says, where are you going? We're just getting ready to start davening. I know your family. And he gets her back into the Ezras Noshim, but he sensed that she's walking out. So he sat down with her in the Ezras Noshim, and he schmoozed with her about her family, about her background, about this and that, and he waited till my two sisters came to daven. And then he said, this is Bari's Kala, this and that, take care of her, and he walked back into shul. It was that 10 minutes, she says, that he chapped her, and he sat with her, and he gave some attention and time and warmth. That's why she stayed. Just because of that. She was on her way out, and that's it. But it was because of that encounter. We tend many times. We come to shul. We're very focused on our sefer, on our place, especially on a regular weekday. We're all rushed up, got to get to work and so on. Many times we don't even see what's going on around us. Es kommt rein a fremde Yid. There's got to be a shalom aleichem. That personal touch and warmth. V'holachta b'drochav. This is emulating the way of our Rebbe. To have a personal interest in every Yid. That's what our Rebbe has taught us. And that's one of the ways how we have to work on our iskashus. Wie wird der Rebbe geführt? How does the Rebbe conduct himself? This is something we have to take into account. And that's the posheted down-to-earth Avos Yisrael. A personal interest in a Yid. A toiveton. Helping him. Giving him an ear, lending him an ear, helping him out. Chapping a shmooze. Taking an interest to help. How are you doing? Remembering certain information. To be able to ask again when you see him the next time. So how's your father? So how's your brother? It can make the difference in a person's life. That somebody cares. That's how the Rebbe, and that's how we have to be too. Ish echad b'leiv echad is down to earth personal interest in every single Yid that we know. And the Eibush will help, and Hashem should help that it should be a kli, the Avos Yisrael, and the way thinking about and a reintrachtnik, thinking about how the Rebbe had that personal interest that we have to also. And that is the v'atem pluktu echad. That's gathering together every single Yid, l'doyre doyres, and we should be zoiche that the kli, or the kolonu ke'echad should be the kli of Borcheinu Avinu, bis the groise brache, that Mashiach soll uns galver and take of me'ad mamish. L'chaim, l'chaim.